Welcome to Maximize Excellence, the podcast where leadership meets purpose, performance, and possibility. I'm Lori Harris, co-founder, partner, and principal consultant at Harris Whitesell Consulting. Each episode, I have the privilege of sitting down with distinguished executives, innovators, scholars, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders from around the world to explore one powerful question. How do you maximize excellence every day? Together, we'll uncover experiences, decisions, habits, setbacks, and breakthroughs that have shaped extraordinary lives. And we'll discuss leadership, organizational culture, human potential, innovation, resilience, and the key principles that create lasting impact. Whether you lead a global enterprise, a growing business, a nonprofit organization, or simply just aspire to become your very best, you'll leave every conversation with practical insights you can immediately apply to your own leadership journey. Thank you for joining us today. So today, our guest is someone whose work has influenced leaders and organizations and industries around the world. And I am delighted to welcome my friend, my mentor, my advisor, George Manning. Welcome, George.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, we're so glad you're here. I want to share a bit about you before we dive into the interview. Is that okay?
Sure.
All righty. So what I do know about George is he is professor of psychology and business at Northern Kentucky University. He's internationally known speaker. He's an author, I believe 11 books now. Is that correct, George?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and one of which we're going to speak very specifically to today, and maybe a couple others. And he's also a consultant to business, industry, and government. His clients have included AT&T, AMA, IBM, GE, Marriott, UAW, the IRS, U.S. Navy, and the National Institute of Health, among others. George's unique approach and magic, and I will say he works magic, for connecting people include a blend of humor, very interesting facts, and practical applications. His warm, personal style has captivated audiences from coast to coast and continent to continent. And among his accolades, he was selected Outstanding Professor at Northern Kentucky University and has received the Strongest Influence Award given by Northern Kentucky Alumni Association. So this is our guest today, George Manning. Thank you for joining me on Maximize Excellence.
I think we got cut about 2/3 to almost all of that. I'm so anxious to get into the talking with you, and but I'm glad you made the intro. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. So let's begin this. And I want to talk, you have this very unique concept around the concept of threes. So before we go in and talk about them, tell us about this concept. Throughout The Art of Leadership, your book, the number 3 appears repeatedly. And why do you think the human mind is naturally drawn to organizing leadership around 3 fundamental ideas? And how has that framework influenced your own thinking? Tell us about that.
Some years ago, I heard that storytellers learned that people remember things in 3. And they tend to write in 3, like 3-act plays. The Trinity is 3. There's 3 bears, 3 pigs, 3 blind mice. And people can remember 3s, the beginning, the middle, the end. So I just find that if I put things in 3s, it's helpful to the students to remember it. And then I read where Willie Sutton, the safecracker, said that we live our lives 3 ways. One is how we remember them, and two is what we tell others, and three is what really happened. So, in this interview with you, I'm going to try to tell what really happened over the course of my 60 years as a teacher at University of Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky University.
Lovely. And let's kind of shift for just a moment, and I'm going to come back to the threes. But and I want to shift because I do definitely want to mention very quickly the book, The Art of Leadership. And so after decades of studying leadership and teaching courses on that, what questions were you ultimately trying to answer when you wrote The Art of Leadership?
Um, well, let me describe the book as being a learning book, more like a seminar workshop kind of a book than a big lecture that would have a lot of content. So
And I
students,
love that you are doing that because, ladies and gentlemen, it is a learning book. And so you will get into it, and I promise you, you will write in it, you will highlight it, and you will tab it because it's a great tool.
it personalizes the subject, and so um, people like it because it says what leadership is social influence. That's what it says in the dictionary. And that influence won't happen, though, unless the leader or leaders care about the work, uh, the mission, the farm, the store, the family, the society, but they got to care about the task, and they got to care about people. And these things can't be faked. Uh, People know who's selfish and who isn't, and they know who's in the saddle and who isn't. And they can't be gotten out of a book either, or a lecture, or an interview. However, if a person did care, they could use a leadership development book to improve their effectiveness. And so that's the thinking behind the book. And it started in 2002, and there's been it's their world book on leadership development. And glory be, it's uh, been commissioned as a ninth edition. I'm looking forward to that'll keep me out of the bars and off the streets theoretically. And, anyway, that's the book in a nutshell.
And and it kicks off with that key definition of what is a leader and the importance of a leader. And in here you definitely dive deep into the ancients. You start and you pull us back forward in allowing us to understand that it is a key almost principle, not necessarily just virtue, but a key principle that definitely has evolved through the years and has or sustained through evolvement through the years and how important it is. And can you speak to the importance of leadership a little bit?
Yeah, and the evolution of the subject in the beginning, the 2002-ish, the first edition, it was very American and male and manufacturing, industrial. But with each revision, people give suggestions, and over the years, I think it's become uh, more feminine, more global, more not just corporate leadership, but public sector, private sector, and more e-world, I-world, virtual in its nature, or in the form it's in that can be used by professors and students. But um, the thing of leadership, to tie it into maximizing excellence, um, there was a model that I ran into years ago, and I actually thought it was the CEO of Dow Chemical who came up with it, but it really wasn't. But the gist of it is that an outfit, an organization, a department, a store, you name it, um, has to have certain things to be successful: a vision, skills, incentives, resources, and an action plan But if they didn't have a vision, that outfit would be confused. Uh, like they have the best horses in the stable, but they don't know which way to run. And if they didn't have skills, there would be anxiety, high anxiety. And if we didn't have incentives as a group or an organization, of course, the marketplace could be incentive, fear could be incentive, you know. You might slow down in a speed zone so you wouldn't get a ticket, but you need incentive. There's just muddling along, gradual change. And if you don't have resources, there's frustration. And then if you don't have an action plan, you know, what's the play, coach? There's false starts. Well, for excellence in organizations, you need all of those on a 1 to 10 and 10. But there's something that is even underpinning or more than those, and that's the morale of the people. And that's what always interested me is the morale and its impact on performance. So it's not a new idea. Napoleon was famous for saying an army's success depends upon its size, experience, equipment, and morale. And morale's worth more than all the other factors combined. So you got to get the right person in the right job. That's number one. And you got to lead them right. That's number two. So those things of morale and performance, you know, and the role of leaders to get morale high and performance high interests me. It's always interested me. Um, I was a psychology major, philosophy major, and I was going down the road at I-75 by a GE plant, and it hit upon me the importance of the world of work. I'd read where Marx thought the world of work was important, and Lincoln thought the world of work was important. And I said to myself, there's a lot of people working in the world. It is important. So what happens in the workplace affects the home place and the community place and the society place. So the idea of helping workplaces be high morale and high performance.
You know, I find this fascinating, George. Today, in my some of my feeds, and I don't know why, but it came up in most of my social feeds today. But Peter Drucker Institute, the Drucker Institute over there at Claremont Graduate University, they're showing an interview of him when he did the Peter Drucker A Perceptive Man, that 2008 interview, and he speaks to leadership needs to be based on three things: principle, mission, and performance. And then and he says, and after he says three things, and then he says, and
Yeah.
how you take care of your people was quite interesting to me. But he as well uses the concept of threes, and then he used the concept of and. Do
Wait,
you?
yeah,
Uh-huh.
let's say something about Drucker. I believe that if there was just a couple people who've had the most impact upon the subject of management and leadership, he'd be he'd be it. He'd be one, if not the
Yes.
one. Yes. And but he talks about the people, and he knew always the importance of people. There's another early influence person who coined the term servant leadership, and Greenleaf was the name, and that has had that supports his point about it's about the people. And what Greenleaf did was imagine a he was an AT&T executive years ago in the world of work. He understood, and anyway, imagine a pyramid and the organizational pyramid that is used to make things logical and rational, and then make it upside down. So if the meaning that the most senior person thing is to serve the people reporting to him or her, and their thing is to report to support the people reporting to him or her until you get to the actual frontline people. And their whole and that the purpose of management, supervisors, executives, and so on is support the people, because 80% of the work in any organization is done by the frontline people. It could be police forces, or it could be aviation companies, it could be teachers, it could be healthcare, but 80% of the work's done by the frontline people. But so servant leadership is what Peter Drucker and Greenleaf and these people would be pushing. And I've got a story. It's always good to throw a story in there. It jumps in my mind. There's very successful, I think he might have retired now, Walt Bettinger, Charles Schwab, the financial organization. And he tells the story that he was getting his master's degree, and he was in a advanced course, and he had a 4 point going into the final, and the professor said, "I taught you everything I know, and the only there's only one question on your final exam." And he passed out a blank piece of paper. The one question was, "What is the name of the lady who cleans the rooms, that cleans the building?" Well, he didn't know, and nobody else knew, and he flunked his final exam. It made him a B student instead of an A student, and he never forgot that. And so when he got into position of leadership, he made sure he knew all the Dotties. That lady's name was Dottie. He made sure, and he spent time and effort and gave a focus of attention on supporting the frontline people. And that's what all leaders find out. Long term success requires supporting, being a servant leader, which means being accessible and being a great communicator and supporting the people with good equipment and materials and so on and so on that leaders can do, because they've got the power to decide things.
And there's another three. So now you led me into this question. In your research and in your experience,
Yeah.
what separates people who achieve lasting success from those who simply experience temporary achievement? So I'm thinking of the secrets of success.
Well, it gets a little philosophical here, but I think that everybody needs something important to do. Uh, and that's one secret. The others, everybody needs someone to love, and that's the other secret. And the other is everybody needs to have gratitude and count their blessings. And so that would be what I think would be the secrets to success. Um, Big picture wise.
So next, it makes me, again, I'm staying in this threes. Few leadership books venture into discussing fundamental determinants of human life, and Art of Leadership touches that. It definitely is a thread. Why did you believe this belonged in your leadership book? And how should we understand these determinants and how they change the way leaders develop people? So what are those the three uh, pardon me, the threes secrets?
I think, uh, you know, it's all about people. Social influence, the word social. So it's all about people. And so you have to know what determines human behavior. And after basic biology, which is king, comes queen, and that is three things. Number one is what you tell yourself that you believe. And some people talk themselves into diminished lives. Some people talk themselves into great lives. So one is your self concept. The second is the people you're around. And you could be around people who are trying to tear you down, people who are trying to lift you up and make your life great. And you could be that way for others. So the second determinant is the people you're around. And the third is the books you read. And by extension, other forms of media. Of course, garbage in, garbage out. Uh, so if you want to uh, fulfill your full potential, uh, you need to, as a person in your life, know the determinants are what you tell yourself, be your own best friend, and use positive uh, mental image of yourself. You know, you got weaknesses, sure, but don't dwell on those. Capitalize on your strengths. Address the weaknesses, maybe with the help of a mentor, who knows what, because there's a place for mentors. But anyway, uh, have a positive self concept and do surround yourself with people who care and want to help. They're out there. Um, and be that way for others and read good books. Um,
So
there,
how should these three determinants, successive determinants, how should these change the way leaders develop people?
uh, well, you always have to be the way you want the world to be. You can give a lecture, but if you don't behave accordingly, the, they'll just it isn't going to work. They go by what you do, not what you say. So you got to be the way you want the world to be. And so if you will use the idea of positive self-image and lead with your uh, best positive self-image, and if you will uh, be helpful to others, so surround yourself with people who support you, and if you will read good books, feed your mind. There's books for the hour and there's books for life, but you could read good books for the hour and for the life. This can help you. And if you were trying to help others, if you were trying to be a mentor to them, you would help them have a positive self concept. You'd have them surround themselves with people who will support and not pull down. And you would have them, whether it's a course, a curriculum, or a book, uh, be developed.
Okay, I have another one, and this one's around happiness. So we're going to talk about the three secrets of happiness. And leadership is often measured by results, but your work also speaks to happiness. So, what relationship do you see between effective leadership and a meaningful, satisfying life in regards to happiness and the three secrets?
Well, I kind of said that was to do, find your niche, your calling,
Uh huh. Uh huh.
and find your marry the right person or have love in your life and to count your blessings. I was getting at that when I said that. I will say this: there's a very good writer, really good, research oriented and thought leader, Jim Collins, and he talks about organizations finding their hedgehog or individuals. So if a person can um, think about what they really want to do and what they're really good at doing and what they'll receive income for doing, and where those three overlap, that's their hedgehog. And that's what they should spend their time and effort on. Uh, all three. One, what you want to do. Two, what you're good at doing. And three, what you'll be paid for. And those three circles, if they overlap, that's the hedgehog. And I think that is, uh, if a person does that, it'd be some version of success or some version of flourishing. Uh, it's a practical way uh, to try to make your life.
Can someone become an exceptional leader while they neglect personal fulfillment? Have you ever seen that or experienced that at all?
Well, yeah, there. I mean, all things are possible under the sun. It's just that, let's say you're a mentor to somebody, and you're helping them fulfill their potential, but you yourself, uh, you're you're just you do some things right and others wrong. So you yourself need to uh, improve in your low spots too, whether it's your physical self, your social self, spiritual self, occupational self. But yeah, you can have social influence to good and not be just perfect yourself. And by the way, if the people look at leaders and they can fall into categories, big picture wise, think of rulers and think of teachers and think of heroes in history. And somebody who kind of wants to be in charge, whether it's Catherine or Isabella or Queen Elizabeth, they're the rulers. Somebody who wants to teach, they might be St. Paul or they might be Buddha or Jesus or such. They're leaders, social influence. Someone who wants to create or build, whether it's Beethoven leading in music or Michelangelo leading in art or um, the fellow that did the printing press. These are heroes. Uh, so a person can lead by act or deed in each of those areas. And you tend to find somebody who, you know, uh, Columbus was a example of somebody who would lead by, as a hero, a deed, discover the new world. But he might not have been the teacher, and he might not have been the ruler type. So it's a nice way to look at the need for all three. The need for all three.
And they're quite supportive of one another as well. When I think about organizational effectiveness, and sometimes when you're looking to achieve an ideal culture, these three roles absolutely play out beautifully. And they're when orchestrated well, it's a symphony, if I may use our analogy of, of music there. It's quite phenomenal. I've had the pleasure of having that kind of environment and working with those types of people in my career, in my lifetime. And I will say that absolutely it's those three roles that really truly matter. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah. And another three thing that can be helpful is the three T's. I read into this years ago from Richard Florida at it was an international meeting, and he talked about the town or the region or the state or the company, wherever they're going to be really successful, they need these three T's: talent and technology and tolerance. Talent being, good schools and technology being maybe good electricity and internet and all that. And then parents being that everybody would want to raise their family there. Everybody would want to work there. And they kind of affect each other. So if if you had a leader, be he, she, a ruler or a teacher or a hero, or there was that combination of people in the leadership cadre, in the leadership cabinet, what should they focus on? They should focus on talent and technology and tolerance. And they affect each other and they blossom, they bloom. And as a company, or as a region, or as a city.
You just triggered a thought in me, and I do want to ask you this next question, but today you hear a lot of comments around leadership being everyone's a leader in the organization. You hear people say that and they generalize everyone is a leader. Is that true? Do we have many leaders, or are we fantasizing in a way so that we can have identity and have meaning and purpose in the organization? How do you feel about that?
Lori, you tell me if your experience is the same as mine. I bet it is. Once a person's been around in an organization or in society or maybe even in their own family, um, they've seen leadership happen. Uh,
Yes.
Someone by their action or by their ideas, they trigger, they influence and others. And so anybody can do that. They could be a child in the family. They could be the mom in the family, the dad in the family. They could be the minister at church, or they could be a usher at church. So the I think leadership, social influence, can happen um, uh, from the efforts of individuals, uh, with or without title. Um,
Love this.
and we see that we're inspired by and moved, influenced by people uh, with or without titles. Now, it helps if you got a title. There's no question. These people who are the um, deciders at the top, uh, they can actually ruin an organization, a town, or they could take an outfit that is not flourishing and turn it into a success because of their efforts, their vision, and their supporting the execution of the vision. Um, so anyway, uh, it, to have influence is and be a decider. Uh, people, some people like that, and they go for the title. They want to be the police chief, or they want to be the chief pilot or whatever, and others don't. They might do leadership not because they want the title. They want to create the best house, or they discover the drug that helps mankind, or they might want to make a place that where people can be happy and healthy, and it's all about people. But you got different social motives, but individuals or people with titles both can influence. Therefore, yes, leadership can happen. Anybody can be a leader.
And one more thought that comes into play for me, technology and the advancements of technology as related to social influence and the way in which people are leading through that mechanism and the impact that it's making. And so, like everything in life, there's both good and negative in that. And what are your thoughts around advancement of technology and the influence, that social influence and impact?
You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson was a thought leader, and he was all about the simple life and nature and all that. And one of the things he said helps then and now. He said, "Beware, don't become tools of your tool. Don't become a tool of your tools." And so every new technology advancement, be sure you're in charge and not it's in charge. And whether it's cars, or whether it's indoor plumbing, or whether it's the internet. And I think that's what we got to do uh, with IT, and as that's unfolded, and and particularly nowadays with the AI, and that's unfolding. But what do I think about it? I think no, it's good to have this ability that you and I have to interact like this. You're in Wilmington, I'm in Maine, and without this technology, we couldn't have this conversation. So I think it's a good technology in itself is neither good nor bad. It's what we do with it is what uh, Thoreau would say. Now,
Love
um,
this. And so it moves me to ask you, where do people learn to lead? So if you could trace development of an exceptional leader, where does leadership truly begin? Is it learned in the family, the classroom, the workplace, through adversity, or somewhere else entirely? So again, where do people learn to lead?
um, the research on the subject of leadership shows the most mentioned place that people say they learn to lead is from experience. They're thrown in the water, expected to sink or swim. Second most mentioned place is from examples or role models. Uh, they watched their aunt do it this way, it worked out, they're going to do it the aunt way. They watched the uncle do it that way. It didn't work out. They weren't going to do the uncle way. And the third place is from books and theories in school. So there's a place for that kind of leadership development, but it's third place. And
Yes.
what's even more interesting is what people say they want in a leader. And the most mentioned thing that Americans say, because different societies look on the subject of leadership differently. The people in the Netherlands, and the people in Germany, for example, the German view of the leader is a little bit more authoritarian. And the Netherlands, it's a little bit more egalitarian. Anyway, what Americans want, say they want in a leader, is integrity, number one, job knowledge, number two, and people building skills, number three. So, like, if you think about the best leader you ever had, I bet you they had integrity. And the most used word, modal word used for integrity is honesty. They were truth seekers, truth tellers. They had integrity. And the second, uh, the job knowledge. If you think about the best leader you ever had, I bet you they kept job knowledge current so they could solve tough problems and teach you. And the third thing, it's third. It's important. If they got these human side, people building kinds of skills, to, maybe to be a mentor, to be a team builder or a motivator or like a coach or something like that.
I
Which
think that's timeless. Those
Mhm.
three things are timeless. Would you agree?
They are what?
They're
They're
timeless.
yeah, yeah. Um, I said coach, and that triggered someone you know because
Yes.
you were worked with and around him. This great coach, John Wooden,
Yes.
said what he learned from his father, and he passed that on to all his players. Was show up and do your best, be kind and help others, and make your life your masterpiece. And that was a three that people could remember, and they would do that. And so I, I think, I I think leadership is all around us, but when it actually happens is when the leader cares about the assignment and cares about the people. One without the other is not enough. I think Wooden, cared about winning that game, but he cared about the people. One without the other wouldn't work.
What do you think are qualities that inspire commitment rather than just simple compliance? What leadership qualities really truly, because we're mentioning care, knowledge, job knowledge, a few of these, just timeless things, but what are some of those leadership qualities that inspire commitment rather than compliance?
Well, I think I think the person has to be in the right niche. And
Yes.
if you're learning that sport that you love from the person who can teach it and model it, uh, you'll be more committed. I think commitment comes from uh, intrinsic, but also commitment can come from a social thing of caring about the other person, and the team, so to speak, not just self, but the team. I think about these soccer players, and I don't know soccer, but I bet you that the winning ones, most winning teams, they probably have a esprit de corps, and that gets commitment. And so, uh, intrinsically doing the thing and itself, be committed because it's you to do it, and be with a team because you care about the other person. You talk about good books. I would want people to know that there's a real good book called The Hard Hat by John Gordon, and it's a sport book. A boy who died on the lacrosse, and George Priority, his team, I think it was Cornell. He was a really good person, and he died on the field, but his qualities. that he had, and the behaviors he had, um, they kept everybody inspired to go on to do good lives, good, you know, good. And the book is called The Hard Hat. So um, I recommend that as a good leadership book.
It is. You've referred that to me, recommended it to me, and it is. It's an excellent read, and it does feature and showcase these qualities, especially the three of care. Uh, taking that responsibility of creating that vision and being very clear about it, and putting people first, and that it truly does make a difference.
The,
Absolutely.
the thing that I'd like to surprise you with a question.
Oh, okay.
Uh, when you, I did the class at the beginning of a course, you say, who was the person who had the most impact upon you in your life? And what did they teach you? And so
Okay.
they write it down. And it might be their grandfather, and they taught them to, your word is your bond. It might be their big brother, big sister who taught them be prepared. So then you put it up on the board, and the class comes up with a big 10 for the semester. Well, at the end of the course, they might have studied all kinds of good books and done good papers and projects and all. They get on the job, and there's a crisis they got to deal with. Um, the first thing they're going to think about is their grandmother and what she taught it. And they'll forget a lot of things that happen in the course. So you yourself, if you personally, uh, Lori, who was the person in your life who had the most impact upon you, and what did they teach you?
Can I have more than one?
Yeah, people often do. People often do.
So I will say my mother, she showed me how to care. She taught me the gentleness of protection, and I'm going to frame it that way. She engaged me very gently and openly in the greatness of nature and learning to love nature. And I think it's why I am able to connect with animals, and it's just beautiful. And she also instilled in me the importance of reading and reading variety, reading all types of genres, and engaging in both music and reading. I will, my grandfather, who I call my papa, he taught me humility. He taught me joy and finding joy in some of the smallest of things in life. He taught me gardening. I would also say he showed me how to genuinely be at peace and have ease when things are chaotic or uncertain. And then he also taught me the importance of study and preparation. He was a scholar himself, and he was uh, self-studied. But he read the greats, he read the ancients, he read any kind of educational book he could get his hands on, and he was brilliant in mathematics as well. And so he's near and dear to me. My high school basketball coach, Dr. Roderick, was influential in my life. He taught me the value of discipline, the value of trust and trustworthiness, and care and love. And my children, I think, are on my list. They taught me how to love differently, and how to have joy from their perspective, and how to care for things that, because as a mother, things are very mundane sometimes, and they would bring in and open me up and put me back together, so to say. And And that gave me that joy and that care. And I think mostly they gave me the gift of hope in seeing them grow and develop, and me being able to engage in being a mother and learning and growing and failing and coming back from that, and hope always being present. So understanding what hope really, the value of hope. Um,
Those are also personal.
yeah,
There's
they are. And then I have Mavash Yazdi was a VP with Edison International, excuse me, in Southern California, Edison. And throughout my career there, the majority of my time there, I worked with her and for her in information technology, and I was working on enterprise-wide projects. And she taught me the value of leadership as you're describing it today. And what a joy that was. I loved my job. It was so much fun. It was the hardest work I've ever done, but man, was it fun. And so that, and then she also showed me the value of business in the community and what that meant. And not so much from a philanthropic side, but from a capacity building perspective and what that could mean and what that could do for society as a whole and communities. And it changed my approach to how I engaged in my community. And then there's friendships, the value of friendship. Kelly DeMccauley, Lynn Whitesell, who's my business partner, by the way, Lori Losi, who happens to be a leader over at NASA with the audiovisual side of the house with NASA out at Edwards Air Force Base. Lillian Henderson is someone who shows me the value of taking care of our body and our mind and our heart and our soul, and what that can mean. And people like Buck Allen, who is in the entertainment industry and is dedicated to featuring people in a truthful way, and helping to bring to light some of the valuable stories that are forgotten, in the world, and of people and societies and the tribal people as well. So he brings a unique perspective for me as well. Um, there's just so many. I have a friend, his nickname is Rambo, and he was a CIA agent. And I worked on a project where we raised quite a few $1 million for abused children through riding motorcycles and across North Carolina together. And so we had over 100 riders, and Rambo was just someone who was attentive and caring, and yet if you looked at him, you would think that he was this hardened soul, and he just was not. And just a great friend. Tom Morris, there's just so many, George. I have a laundry list of people who, the three roles that you talk about: teacher, leader, hero. Absolutely, I could probably categorize them into those areas for
the
sure.
other the other thing that your case shows is that there were early on people
Yeah.
that
Yes.
can, and there's people all through your life from different walks, sports as girl, and
Yes.
the world of work. The other
Uh-huh.
thing that the list shows is that it's wasn't just male, wasn't just female, it's both. And
Uh-huh.
I have a story that people won't forget. Um, President Lincoln, we all think that he was a great human being, a great leader. And when asked where he learned leadership, you know what he said? He said from his two mothers, Nancy Hanks and Sarah Beth Johnston. That's where he learned to lead, from his two mothers. So, men, women, all ages can learn and grow in their leadership uh, effectiveness. Um, the the I want to say something about Clint Eastwood, because this is kind of personal. Um, I like him. Everybody does. I think everybody does. I know that.
I love him.
And I know. And he was asked about by Toby Keith, who was another person everybody loves, and they were playing golf. And he said, Toby, how do you keep so and all and productive and all that? And he was 88 at the time. He says, well, I get up in the morning and I don't let the old man in. And it's just as simple as that. So Toby went home and he wrote a song, Don't Let the Old Man In, that was the trailer for the
Yes.
mule, the movie, The Mule. And he said, would you like to use this? And Clint did. And to my mind, what this story says a lot of things. It's not how long you're here that counts, it's how you're here. Toby, younger by far than Clint, but he was here in a good way. But Clint, to my mind, he's not a boss. He's not got a title like a leader, but to my mind, he's led me because I try to, number one, work across generations. Number two, which Clint would do. Number two is make your last work your best work. Try to, which Clint Eastwood would be an example of trying to make his last work his best work. And three, don't let the old man in. Don't let the old man in. So, anyway, people with or without a title can have good social influence. And the last thing I don't know if it's the last thing, but I want to be able to say this. Eleanor Roosevelt, uh, how you do what Clint Eastwood was talking about, and I just mentioned. She wrote an article, not an article, but for years, a column in all, and it was in all the newspapers, and it was called My Day, and she would say what she thought that day. And one of the things that she said is every year do do something that you've never done. It's new. Do something new every year. And so that's one way to approach things. And the second thing is when opportunity knocks, just say yes. Be open to new things and say yes, no matter your age. She would say that. And I'm throwing this third thing in is have a mentor. Now, sometimes your mentor is younger than you. Sometimes they're world of work. Sometimes they're world of community. And sometimes you mustn't be shy. Maybe the mentor's shy. Uh, you got to be a little forceful. Get up there and say, "Take me on," and you'll grow, and they will grow too. You and the mentor will grow.
Well, well, I want to say this. I always like to leave listeners with one last timeless thing from our guests. So, George, after a lifetime devoted to understanding leadership, if every listener remembered only one idea from our conversation today or one principle that could make them a better leader, a better teacher, or a better hero, what would you hope that would be?
Uh, well, I think you got to be true to who you are, and you can't be false to others. And I do think you need to be not selfish, but be other serving, transformational, not transactional. I'd be
Excellent.
remiss if I didn't say the impact. One more thing. Benjamin Franklin. I read a few years ago what he had as his New Year's resolution every year, and I've used it every year for my own self. My New Year's resolution every year is make war on my vices, uh, keep peace in the family, and uh, what is the third one? Um, I can't remember the third one. There's a third one though. I'll have to
Well, we're
think
going
of
to look it up, and I'm going to make sure when I post our podcast, we're definitely going to mention that at the very end.
Yeah, what is that thing? I have it written down someplace, and it's important that he said, and I do. I try to make war on my vices, and I try to keep peace in the family. The answer to that is don't have to you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Oh,
Correct.
the third is to do good works with dear friends, which is like what we're doing right now. My mind,
Yes.
trying
Yes.
to have an interview that's useful to people.
Beautiful. Well, George, I just want to say thank you for sharing your wisdom, your experiences, and these beautiful stories and lessons that you've learned throughout your journey towards excellence. And you are of high excellence, and you offer that to others in such a genuine and caring and generous way. If today's episode inspired you, challenged your thinking, or gave you a new perspective, I hope that our readers out there will subscribe. I hope they will look and look at these links and connect with you to learn more about you on your Northern Kentucky University website, or they connect with you on your LinkedIn with you. And when you do connect with George on LinkedIn, make sure you give him a little note to say that you heard him and watched him on our podcast so that he has a reference point. And you also get a chance to maybe pick up his book, The Art of Leadership. And one that he did not mention, you might want to say something about George before we walk away and shut this podcast down, is The Lifetime Lessons in Consulting. I think this is another excellent book of yours. Did you want to mention anything about it?
I'll say this: it's a second edition, and I'm glad for it. I didn't think a second edition would work, but I read years ago that L.A. Whitesell did a second edition of Night, and I read the second edition, and it was even a little better than the first. So it gave me impetus to do this. And I got one last point to make by asking you a last point. And
Okay.
I think the listeners would be curious and they'd be inspired to know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is, but Jean Paul Sartre, the French existentialist writer, uh, said that everybody needs a project. Everybody needs something important. Everybody needs a project. So when you think of Laurie Harris and all the projects that she has, but when you think of your project for 2026, uh, what is this big project that you're going to do?
Goodness. So very specifically, I can share with you now. My biggest project is I am working on a leadership institute for one of the largest professional membership organizations here in the southeastern region of the United States, and very honored, very humble in this opportunity, and as well very excited to be able to partner with such an organization, and looking forward to the pilot program as well as launching the full program in 2027. So that's kind of where I am, is in this leadership realm, and the project of helping people become better leaders or understand their leadership so that they can go and share that back out with others. So it's in that realm of teacher and coach and facilitator and consultant and advisor role. And that's where I'm at right now. And that's my project for this coming year. And I'm very, very honored and excited to be doing that.
Well, I think I, if you have been performing uh, all your life, uh,
Yes.
I bet you $1 uh, with this project and others that your best is still ahead of you.
And my gardening project. I've got a garden project I'm working on. So right. George, I just want to say thank you again. I'm going to wrap up this podcast. It was of excellence, and I appreciate your energy, your time, and all your joy. The stories that you shared and the concept of three was throughout, and I really feel that this is going to be an episode that gets watched quite frequently. So I look forward to publishing this. And anyone that's out there, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's at Harris Whitesell Consulting, and share this episode with colleagues or a friend. Please feel comfortable in leaving a review. It helps us continue to bring exceptional leaders and meaningful conversations to the audiences around the world that we reach. You can find additional leadership resources, articles, assessments, coaching materials, keynote presentations, and organizational development services through our website at harriswhitesellconsulting.com. Please feel comfortable to reach out to either myself or Lynn Whitesell at any time. We're happy to serve you and be there for you. And most importantly, I want you to remember that excellence is never an accident. It is built through intentional choices, continuous learning, courageous leadership, and a commitment to helping others becoming their very best. Excellence isn't a destination. It's a decision we make every day. I am Lori Harris. Until next time, please keep leading, keep being a hero in the good way, and keep being a teacher. Keep learning and keep growing, and always please maximize excellence. Thank you and have a great day.